I've now been talking to you, my dear learners, for a while on new product development. We have taken up different pieces in example form. So, we spoke about bicycles when we were talking about how to get user inputs, needs, benefits, etc. We used some other examples at different phases, but here in this module or in this lesson, I am going to do a case study where I will take you from the customer value proposition to the product launch itself. And therefore, what were the benefits, functional, emotional, what were the features, were there any specifications, and how was the MVP. So, and I am going to use a food product which I have worked on and would like to acknowledge Britannia. They had shared this at their PR launch of this product, and while it's many years old, it's still very relevant from a customer value proposition to product launch as a case study. The innovation process, reminder always, it needs two things. It needs invention, which means some R&D, and it needs adoption, which means some consumers. So, both the technical aspect as well as the consumer aspect have to come together. So, this is the case study of a brand called Britannia NutriChoice, which was on its journey from proactive health into functional health. It was a time in the Britannia NutriChoice journey where it was seen as a healthy product. It was seen as something that should be consumed or could be consumed to be healthy, to be proactively healthy, to snack in a healthy manner, to not make the wrong choices of snacking, but it was not seen as a health product. So, if I had to summarize it in one word, Britannia NutriChoice were healthy biscuits, but they were not health biscuits, right. This perhaps is a verbatim from a consumer, which is how can this brand go from being just proactive health into this word called functional health, which means that it delivers something good, better for you, for the customer, for a very, very specific functional need. So, let us get right into it. How was the problem articulated? And the problem is articulated here in a in a science kind of diagram. So, there are regular people who are normal people, and when they eat food, it gets converted to glucose because they have the right amount of insulin in their bodies, and it releases the right amount of energy. So, that is how hopefully all your bodies are, and you are normal, as in you do not have diabetes, and therefore, the food that you eat, your body generates the insulin by itself, and that the food gets converted into glucose, which is energy, and the right amount of energy gets released into your body. People with diabetes, which is the second box at the bottom, they do not have the right amount of insulin generated by their bodies. That is the metabolic problem, that is the physical problem, the physiological problem that these people face, that they do not have the right amount of insulin generated, and therefore, the glucose is converted less into energy and it stays as sugar or glucose in the bloodstream, and this is what gets picked up when you do your blood sugar tests, and they say that your blood sugar is high because there is a normal number, there is a number for people when they have not eaten, and so fasting sugar and post eating sugar. So, these are normal indexes that are available. People with diabetes have higher than the band kind of available. So, the problem is there are people who have diabetes, as simple as that, but I gave you the food context also into it because it is important from Britannia's point of view to be understanding this. So, this is the problem articulation. From here we went and understood the problem in more detail. And if you see at the center of it is again this scientific medical term called insulin resistance. If you go around the circle, there is everything. There is excess weight, there is liver and cirrhosis of the liver, there is heart condition, there is kidney condition, all of which is not just caused by the diabetes, but aggravated, made worse by the diabetes. So, this was the amount of a little more than this was the amount of understanding of the problem of people with diabetes that the Britannia R&D team as well as the Britannia marketing team understood. So, went about customer discovery. So, what were the hypotheses? Men more likely to be diabetic because that is what the data suggested, but women are very important to Britannia NutriChoice because they are the caregivers and they are more likely to buy the product. So, this is a hypothesis, and like I said, a hypothesis is just an assumption. It is a statement about what we know about our market, about our customer, about our channel, and how our product will perform. The next hypothesis, and this was a tough one for Britannia at that point of time, was that Britannia had the credentials to be a functional health product. Britannia had always been known for, I don't know, 90 years, 80 years, 85 years to be a tasty biscuit brand. It was known for several of its products, but was it known for functional health? Functional health is not the same as healthy. It means that it performs a function which is relevant for a person suffering from a specific condition. In this particular case, the condition was that of diabetes. The third hypothesis that we postulated was that metros have higher awareness levels. People are diabetic, but they do not know about it. And this was some channel, a doctor channel, which we as the company Britannia had very little understanding of, but we put in this assumption that doctors will be open to prescribing as part of the diet chart to their nutrition requirements, provided we made the right kind of product. So, these were the hypotheses. And how did we go about testing? We did focus groups in metros and mini metros, large numbers, can't remember now, but a very large number of consumers were met in focus group, meaning a group of 7 or 8 people with a moderator, not just talking to the moderator, but talking with each other also. Doctors were met for understanding the need and for understanding whether they will detail the product or prescribe the product as part of nutrition. And if they had to prescribe a product, what all should it have? That was the more important question to understand. Also, pharma chains were met to understand whether they will keep the product. Till now, till then, Britannia was sold from bakeries, from kirana shops, from modern trade. I do not think there was e-commerce at the time, but the medical chains or the medical shops was not something that Britannia had targeted till such time. So, these were the hypotheses, and remember I had shown you a Sari library hypothesis. Like I keep saying, if you have an idea in your mind, every time you hear something like this, quickly jot down an assumption that you have in your mind for the idea that you have. These were some of the insights that we came up with, and I will read them to you, but I will give you a second to browse them yourself. It says that people with diabetes face energy dips during the day. People with diabetes feel deprived कि मैं कुछ खा नहीं सकती, मुझे ये खाना मना है. Every time I ask somebody, they say, oh, but you have diabetes, आप ये नहीं खा सकते हो. Other family members are always concerned. My wife always talks to me as if मेरे साथ कुछ बड़ी problem है life में. Or my daughter or my daughter-in-law keeps telling me how I should do this and don't do this. So, they get advice from practically everyone, meaning diabetes की advice तो सब लोग हमें देते हैं. That was something we kept hearing from people. They definitely felt that they didn't have a product that was suited for them. So, they said that there is no product that is suited for us, there is none such that is available in the market. So, what do? They practice abstinence, which is parhez, nahi khate hain. Rather than eating something good, they do not eat what is bad. So, that is the current life of someone with diabetes. The insight that we gathered was that it had to be rooted in food and not in medicine, because medicine was something that all people with diabetes who had ever gone to a doctor had access to. So, this was after the large amount of customer discovery that we did, we validated the idea and said that there are 3 things that are already happening for people who have diabetes. This RX is medication. The first thing that they get is medication. So, they all get their medicines twice a day, once a day, as it might be. They start doing some exercise, which is typically a morning walk or an evening walk. So, that gets added into their everyday routine. Food becomes healthier. So, the person at home who is cooking for them gets more careful. So, fiber gets added, some things get removed, sugar by itself definitely gets removed, some new things come into their diet. So, the khana and the medicine and the exercise to some extent have been addressed for people with diabetes. The gap, the glaring gap that we saw was there was no right snack. There was absolutely no good snack for people with diabetes, and this told us very loud and clear that this is a gap that we could address. So, without further ado, I am going to show you the customer value proposition. So, it is about Britannia NutriChoice healthy snacking. It not only provides the needed energy, but because you eat multiple times a day, your sugar spikes do not happen. So, instead of eating 3 large meals a day, you eat between meals, and therefore, the sugar does not go up and down, but stays at a more easier to manage level through the day. And this was a space that we found in not just customer minds, but in physiology, in doctor minds and in nutritionist minds. And the part was not to tell you about the customer value proposition. The part was to tell you how we built product from there, how Britannia built its product from there. And what was the product brief? It said 0 added sugar, of course. It said high fiber. Complex carbohydrates means that blood sugar, glucose does not get released into the bloodstream quickly. It gets released gradually, like those 2 graphs are showing. It should not have fat, and it needed to build in other positives. Very early in the project, I think this name had come about, which is that Britannia wanted this product to be diabetic friendly. And it was not, it was very important to use the word friend or friendly, because of the insight that Britannia had got, saying that they felt deprived, they felt that they did not have anybody who understood them, and therefore, the diabetic friendly word became important in the creation process, in the development process of this product itself. So, this was the brief that the Britannia R&D team worked with, which is 0 added sugar, 0 cholesterol, 0 trans fat, extra fiber, complex carbohydrates. All of this sounds very good, but the last line is the most important one, which is to deliver all this without giving up on taste, because any food has to pass the tongue test before it gets into the metabolic test of all of these things happening or not happening. So, here is the equivalent of prototype testing. So, there was a lab created product and it was tested, and I will not go through the attributes, but these are what are called attributes. So, you figure out both what is important to the customer and you figure out how you are doing as a product against those attributes. And what was clear was that customers wanted a balance of health and taste. In fact, there was one sample prototype that was tested, which was a little sweet, because it's possible to add sweetener without adding sugar. It's very easy to do that. There are sweeteners available, natural sweeteners available. But when the customer ate that product, they said, but this is too sweet. This is not good for someone with diabetes. And rather than tell them and try to educate them that don't worry, this is a sweetener, so it's fine for people with diabetes because it is not sugar, but it was decided that we should not go against the basic naive understanding that customers have. They felt that the product should not be very high on sweet. In fact, it should not have a chocolate flavor in it at all, because in their minds it went against what a product for people with diabetes could be like. So, they wanted a balance of health and taste, and that is what was developed. This was the minimum viable product, if I can call it that, for Britannia NutriChoice diabetic friendly essentials. There were two types of products, one made with oats in it and one made with ragi, which is a millet available and commonly used in some states in the country, not necessarily all states in the country. It did not, the communication for this launch said, hello diabetes, let's be friends. This is an actual ad that was run in the papers of the cities there where the product was launched, hello diabetes, let's be friends. And it was, and when the team did the consumer research after it was launched, this was not just recalled, but highly appreciated, because no one had spoken to people with diabetes in such easy, friendly language. Many other things about the product were done, which is from a minimum viable product. The product came in I think small packs which had 2 or 3 biscuits, which was about 100 calories, and it was easy for the person going to work to carry it in their bags and have them, you know, in the mid morning or in the middle of the afternoon, which are when sugar level dips and you feel like a snack, so that those spikes of sugar do not happen. So, here the minimum viable product was a launch, was a factory production, but it was in a test market. I do not remember now how many markets, but it was not national. I think it was some maybe 4 cities if I remember right, but the resource was conserved till we figured feedback. So, therefore, I am able to recall after all of these years and say that this is like the equivalent of a minimum viable product, because there were changes that were possible and perhaps were done after that too. But for a FMCG product, for a consumer good product which is physical and needs to be produced in a factory, a minimum batch size is the minimum viable product. A minimum batch size combined with the resources needed to test in 1 market or 2 markets, and that is called a test market. So, if you are a technical product, you can offer the minimum features and keep adding features, but things like cookies get consumed, so then you can't add anything to something that has already been consumed. And so, the minimum viable product in the context of a FMCG product is a test market, and knowing that the product is still available after 12 years, I am reasonably sure that this is done well, and I am sure the team has continued to build the product with added goodness or removed badness or whatever inputs that have come from customers from time to time. That is how the minimum viable product works. It gives inputs which are from real customers, and those get built into the next set of products, and it allows you to do this in a quicker manner than waiting for the product to be perfect before you launch it. So, this was an example of a customer value proposition where I showed you the physiology of glucose for a normal person and for a person with diabetes, and the MVP for it from Britannia NutriChoice, which was created by understanding this need not just from a functional benefits point of view, and for the functional benefits I showed you the product specifications of zero trans fat or zero sugar, zero whatever, those were the specifications, but not just were the functional benefits taken care of, but the emotional benefits of being deprived or emotional non-benefit of feeling deprived, of feeling that there is no product for someone like me, those were taken care of in the manner in which communication or in the manner of packaging or manner of how the brand spoke to the customer. So, functional benefits, emotional benefits, functional benefits broken down into features, built as a prototype, tested with customers, figured that balance is the right way. In FMCG industry, we rarely test one prototype. We will go with 3 or 4 samples and go to a large number, maybe 300-400 customers, do a taste test and come back and figure out which is the right product, and that then goes to the market as the minimum viable product. I hope after this example and with all of the previous discussions that we have had, the minimum viable product is more clear to you. The stages in the new product development cycle are idea becoming a proof of concept, which is technical feasibility, from there getting to a prototype which has both functionality and appeal or desirability, and the most critical milestone for a startup, which is MVP, minimum viable product, where you have the minimum set of features that a customer is looking for to put down money to buy the product, and then it goes into a production or a full batch or an automated batch. The 2 examples that we covered were definitely Attenberg on fans and Britannia NutriChoice with its diabetic friendly essentials. I hope this was of help to you. Thank you so much.